Welcome back to our coverage from the AWS Summit here in New York. We're live on twitch.tv/AWS. And I'm joined now for this next segment by a couple of team members from the AWS Deep Learning team. Do you want to introduce yourself, guys?
Hi, my name is Guy Ernest. I'm part of the Amazon AI team. I'm a solution architect, and my job now is to try to get every developer, every business to use deep learning. I think it's awesome technology, and we want to make it simple, make it easy. We want everybody to be able to try to do that, and this is why we are here.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sunil. I work with Guy as well. So part of the AI team, solutions architect, helping customers get started on AWS with deep learning, and also empowering developers really on how easy it is to get on AWS.
Great. So the first thing that I've been asking most of the service team members that have been coming up to talk to us today is to describe a little bit about the problem space that they're working on with customers. So can you describe what kind of problems you're trying to help developers overcome with the services that you and the team are working on?
Yeah. With AWS, we have we are actually privileged that we work around different spaces, anywhere between healthcare to transportation, travel. So we get to work on a lot of different use cases and help our customers, benefit from our learnings across different segments.
Right, and what we're trying to do is try to get people to don't think only about this kind of front end, e-star like e-business or e-commerce or e-insurance. Try to think about your customers, and this is why you need to understand your data, but not enough to do some BI or do some big data analytics and stuff like that. Try to go and hug your customers, personalize the experience to them. Try to build something which will be unique. And those big, hard problems is something that it's hard to do if you just think about, I will build this API. You need to think about big data, take the data, build machine learning models, and now deep learning is making this deep learning even better. Okay. And again, big, hard problems, the ones like Amazon is solving with the Amazon Go and Alexa, very big and important thing that can double the business, make you way more successful, distinguish yourself against any other of your competitors. This is the type of problem we want to solve, and we know deep learning, machine learning is the technology around that, but it's hard to do it, and we try to democratize AI. We try to give it in the hands of every developer and every business.
And I think unlocking the customer potential is the key aspect that our team concentrates on.
In the keynote this morning, the general manager for this service area, Matt Wood, he talked about AWS operating at several different levels. Now, I'm guessing there might be some people watching the stream here that didn't see this morning's keynote. So, can you just quickly recap what these three levels are? I think this is a really important aspect of AWS's services in this area. So, can you talk about that a little bit?
At the highest level, we have the API-based or the AI-enabled services. So we have Lex, which is essentially a chatbot as a service to help our customers build chatbots and integrate with multiple channels like Facebook, Slack, Twilio, and so on. And then you have Recognition, which is our essentially a lot of computer vision APIs as a service. So helping you detect, scene, what's in a scene, what's in an image, and also do face detection, build interesting solutions
Faces
around
of
that.
People.
And then you have Poly, which is text-to-speech, again using deep learning. So we have a lot of customers, for example, Duolingo, help actually people learn new languages. And they actually did an A/B test, interestingly, where they had Poly essentially do the speech analysis, and they had their other technology to kind of compare a baseline. And they actually found that people learned it faster with Poly doing the work. So that's kind of the top level.
Right, so this simple API, general purpose problems, there is no excuse not to do AI today, because you don't need to have a data scientist, you don't need to spend that much time in getting data training model and build those models. We already did it in the simple API. But sometimes there is something that we don't do. Again, we are doing the general purpose problem, the thing that everybody needs, like text-to-speech, like image recognition, but sometimes there is something that you are unique. It's your data, something that you can build yourself, and you need to build yourself because we don't give it out of the box, not we and not any other APIs. And this is where you need to dive deeper, and these are the next level. So the first level is do machine learning. Only how do you do machine learning, what data scientists are operating, how do you do it easily, how do you get a cluster of machine to train and so on. And then you're starting to dive even deeper. Deep learning, and maybe even go and customize even the hardware to do the deep learning or machine learning in a better way. So always start on the top level, use whatever you have out of the box, the APIs are already there, but for your very, very specific problem, the one that are unique to you, that is unique to you, go and build the models, and you need to dive deeper to the other levels.
So if you're operating at these lower levels, how can AWS help you overcome some of the challenges that might exist there? Is it in frameworks? Is it in special purpose hardware? What are the specific services that AWS has that can help developers build things that are more customized in nature?
Right. I mean, the innovation is all of that service stack, right? So at the hardware level, Guy talked a little bit about the FPGA stuff, how easy we're making it to customize. But at the next level, with the frameworks, so we have the Deep Learning AMI, which recently had a second refresh. So essentially, all the frameworks, all the popular deep learning frameworks like Apache MXNet, TensorFlow, Keras, CNTK, all that is packaged for you, including the NVIDIA CUDA drivers to help you get started. So going from nothing to actually getting a machine with everything to do deep learning takes you less than a couple of minutes.
Sunil and I, we are spending a lot of time to try to educate the customer, launch a GPU, launch a Jupyter notebook, see those notebooks, a tutorial that you can learn deep learning. So there's really no excuse not to go and do it today. Of course, it's not going to be like, we walk in the park. It's not a simple API, but it's going to be amazing. It's going to be very powerful technology that people should learn. And it's easy to start, it's easy to scale, it's easy to grow, but it does require dedication, it requires the time. Usually when I talk with customers, I tell them it's 6 months. 6 months from your decision to start, I want to build a new business, a new technology, to reinvent myself as a developer to be a deep learning developer. But after the 6 months, you have a huge tool in your hand, you have the technology, you have clusters, unlimited resources that the cloud can provide, and it's just, again, a matter of decision and execution of this decision for the few weekends until you get no, we're not data scientists. Sunil and I, we are developers just like you guys. But we dedicated ourselves to learn, and today we can actually build some stuff.
So I can see Sunil's got like 4 or 5 Jupyter tabs open on that laptop there, so why don't we jump in now and you can show us
I'll show
some of the things that are possible with this technology. That'd be awesome to do, I think.
I'd also like to add that, in addition, data is a big problem, right? So we need to have data as well. So we're a lot of public data sets we're making available in S3 for no cost. We're hosting them so that developers can actually innovate on AWS. And so we're also providing code and tutorials to actually help folks work on these problems and learn. So we're going to switch. I'm going to show a quick demo here, a notebook that's actually available on GitHub for our customers. So essentially, trying to predict, spot prices. How cool it would be to do model time series data. And so essentially, this data set here, we see 10 days worth of capture on how much a P2 instance, actually cost. So the range is about 15 cents to 50 cents. So we modeled this as a time series problem. I'm going to skip the details on how we actually do. But essentially, I want to show you the model that's going to actually try and predict this, which fits on a single screen, right? Like the code literally fits on a single screen. So it's how easy it is for people to get started. And here's a prediction of how it actually looks like. And you can see, so the model was only trained on the 75% of the data, and the rest of the 25% was kept as to predict on. So, as you can see, it pretty much the orange stuff follows the blue line at the end, and all of this on data that it never saw.
By the way, this is really a magical technology that in 20 lines of code you can get data which is completely unstructured. You don't know even what are the features, what to look at. Feed it through this LSTM model and you can predict the next sequence and you can make a lot of money because, again, if you know to use spot instances correctly, you can save 90, 80% of your GPU or AWS cost. So this is really a powerful technology and it's available to learn. As I mentioned, there is some code to read, some understanding what to tweak, how to change it, but once you dedicate yourself to learn it, it's really not that complex.
Oh. Yeah, some people used to model stocks actually, similar stuff. So if you can predict get multiple variables in, you might be able to predict stock prices. Yeah, I thought I think a natural question is, okay, we built the model, like, how do we actually integrate into the AWS ecosystem? How do we deploy and creating endpoints, right? Ultimately, you want to monetize. So here's a cool notebook. Essentially, we pick a pre-trained model, so you can train the model, and we're going to deploy that on Lambda. So this code is, essentially it uses serverless application model, packages the code, does some settings to replace the YAML files, and boom, like you now have an API endpoint. So I'm going to show you, so this is an image in Svalbard in the middle of nowhere, and you can see here our API can actually predict that. So we'll take something, so this is the Jarvis Center here where we are in New York, and let's try and see if we can get our code to predict where we are right now. So it takes it's a pretty heavy model. It's a 500 meg model that's actually on Lambda, hosted in S3, and it actually downloads the model and runs the prediction.
And this is an important point that we usually talk about it with our customers, that deep learning is not only data science. It's not only how do you solve the machine learning problem and so on. It starts with a lot of data, that you need to have the data in S3 or in some other Redshift and some other data store. And then you have to think about the deployment. How do you take the model from the lab to the field? How do you make money with that? And this is why we have so many of these options, like Lambda, which is a very popular option, but we can do it with containers, we can do it with, we discussed a bit about deployment to Greengrass and to FPGA, which are a bit more advanced, more complex, but you need to think about the overall. The hard problem, the huge amount of data, then training the model, which we can do it distributed way in the cloud, but make sure that you deploy it and do it many, many times, because machine learning is all about iteration, exploration, experiments, many, 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 many failures. But when you succeed, it's really awesome.
So just to recap, the trained model there is deployed in Lambda. You hit that API endpoint,
Correct.
pass in a URL to that image,
API
it grabs
gateway,
the image
and it actually says that image is from New York.
So during this time we didn't train the model, but we load the model to Lambda, create a simple API, and now we have the API, we can call it from the web browser.
And the good thing is with MXNet, we actually provide a model zoo where we have a lot of pre-trained models that people can use and deploy or fine-tune. So some of these models have actually cost tens of thousands of dollars actually to train. So we've made that available at no cost for our customers to go and innovate.
Again, this is the promise of deep learning, that you can actually go and continue to learn. You can maybe know how to translate to 10 languages, but you want to translate to 11 languages, you can just do it much faster because you already know how to translate to other 10. And this is the same with the label. If you not to recognize 10,000 labels, you want to recognize different thousands, you can do it in a matter of few hours, and the cost is not going to be like training the baby from until he's becoming an MBA graduate.
Yep, understand. What's with the iPhone and the pen that you've got on your desk?
Yeah, good you ask. So yeah, speaking of end development, right? So we saw API gateway and Lambda, but also you can deploy this on edge devices and phones. So Apple came up with Core ML, which is an interface where you can convert models and use it on any iOS device. So we collaborated with Apple, and they've contributed code and a converter to convert MXNet models into Core ML, and we actually talked about that at Guy's talk. And so I'm going to show you a
hot
demo.
from the oven. This is something that they announced about a couple of months ago. They released the converter 2 days ago. So this is what we are so happy about. The research, the development now is so hot. Everything is updating all the time. Many developers and many companies are working to get it better and easier. So this kind of application you could do in the past, but you need to run this process, another process. Now, in a matter of 15 minutes, you can deploy a deep learning model from MXNet to the iOS device.
Let's see. So, okay, there you go. Like it's happening live. So we've got a mobile-friendly model. It's called a SqueezeNet, which we've converted. It's a 5 meg model. It really fits on the phone. As you can see, it can detect in real time. It can even detect that's a space bar.
And we can move it to airplane mode, and still it's going to work. Because it's running everything is locally, no cloud, no connectivity, no nothing. Everything is done by the GPU or the CPU of the device. And this really opened up so many opportunities to take the training that you do in the cloud and deploy it to touch the pockets or the hands of actual customers out there in the field.
Understand. So running out of time, getting towards the end of the segment, can you talk a little bit about where developers can go to learn more about AWS AI and deep learning services? What sort of resources do we make available for customers, and where can they find them?
Yeah, so we have our landing page on AWS. So if you go to aws.amazon.com/AI, so we have a lot of material there on getting started with AWS. But also, we've contributing a lot of notebooks, data sets, and also tutorials for people to get started on the deep learning and what's happening behind the scenes as well, so that they have a complete picture on how to start modeling problems and then to actually deploying them and monetizing them. So one such is mxnet.io and gluon.mxnet.io, which is a new imperative interface for a more developer-friendly interface that we made available, which actually goes through track like right from scratch on how do you build a network. We've got a lot of information there.
And we have the deep learning army.
Correct.
And this is the most powerful, easy way to do that. You can go to the EC2 console, click launch, go to the quick start, then after a couple of options like SUSE and Red Hat, you will see the deep learning army. It's coming pre-installed with all the deep learning libraries like MXNet, TensorFlow, Theano, all the Anaconda, Python, everything that you need. Also pre-configured with the GPU. So if you want to deploy it on a GPU machine, like the P2 or the G2 or G3, you can do it in 5 minutes. You can have a deep learning environment, and then you can take the notebooks and run your tutorial. So it's really something that I said a couple of times, there's no excuses. There is no excuse today not to start. Everything is relatively easy. It's only a matter of decision. I want to be, where the big companies are today. And I think that we can meet 6 months from now, maybe even earlier. reInvent is now the corner. We can really talk about that and see how you can actually go and do whatever we do. When we say we, this is Amazon and Apple and Facebook. We are doing deep learning all the time for huge benefits for our business.
We see that with a lot of startups, right? Like we see a lot of startups doing deep learning on AWS. Like you saw at the keynote today with Arteris, ZocDoc, and many more. Like
we have Huddle that is analyzing those videos and understanding what the players are doing, and we have
two-person startups essentially doing magical things on AWS.
Right. This is the promise of AWS. The same thing that the big companies can do now. Every startup, 2 people in the garage, can compete.
Great, good stuff. So we're out of time for this segment, guys. Thanks for joining us today on twitch.tv/AWS. Going to draw this to a close now. Tara will be back in 5 minutes with a discussion around Amazon Macy, meeting some of the team members involved in delivering that new service. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.